everyone, this is a very different kind of video today. Instead of doing something that is lifestyle, fitness, healthy, blah, related, because we've got breakfast week, there's a lot of that sort of coming up, so I've decided to kind of go a bit into my own personal life in the hope that by me talking about something like this, might be able to help somebody else. I'd always wanted to even video this through my journey, but I wasn't in a position, in a mental state to be able to do that. I couldn't cope with it. Without dancing around the topic too much now, I have epilepsy. Now, I wasn't born with it. I was diagnosed with it in 2012. I don't have grand mal seizures. I have what we call complex partial seizures. Now, a lot of people don't know what that is, and I hold my hand up to it. Before I was diagnosed, I didn't know either. Complex partial seizures and partial seizures are very similar, but not quite the same. There's a few differences between them from what I understand. I don't look like anything's happening. I'm completely blank. You couldn't really spot it if it was going on unless I was able to somehow flag that something weird was happening. I get an aura, which is a little bit of a warning sign that something's happening. It tends to be very, very quick. I'll just go, I can feel that something funny is happening. I can't actually sort of go, hi, this is happening, one sec. It's over before I know it. A deja vu feeling, which I don't know, it's a weird deja vu feeling. And then the worst part is I will have an extreme fear come over me as well. It's like nothing I've ever, sod the horror films, all of the scary movies. This was nothing like that. This was in a league of its own. It's horrible. I can't quite describe how horrible it is. It is completely confusing as well. You're very disorientated. For me, I have previously had where something you could see, which was swallowing a lot, and this hand would twitch. Now that didn't happen all the time. It did initially, until it's now been controlled with medication. To quickly let you know how bad it was, I've got a seizure diary. I started keeping one because I thought if I jot down straight afterwards what happened, then it might one day come in useful to look back and actually be proud of how far I've actually got and how I've managed to control it with the help of medication and with myself. So there's one where I was actually doing an exercise class. I went to body attack, and whilst doing press-ups, felt odd, had a deja vu feeling, and obviously had a seizure. Tried to carry on but couldn't function, extremely confused, and couldn't remember what day or time it was. Attempted the next half of the track, but had to leave. Even though seizure was a few seconds, I had to lie down to feel me again. I stood in the shower, and because it had happened once, I'd be stressing about it happening again, which in turn would also egg one on. Classic FM was my saviour throughout those years of, I forgot actually how much I did actually listen to it. Took the radio with me into the bathroom while I was having a shower and used to put it on. I'd tell my fiance I was going in and that he was to, listen out in case there was any problems. But I'd put it on. Calm me, I'd feel less stressed, I'd feel less fearful of going in the shower. I mean, it's weird me even talking about it because it doesn't even cross my mind now. Bizarre how far I've actually come. It's quite nice to say, I'm on the other side now, and it's much, much better. Everyone's is different, and just you can't tell at all that I'm having one. And to anyone I'm speaking to, if I was to say afterwards I've just had a seizure, they wouldn't necessarily know. I wanted to also say that I'll have the seizure and it'll last a few seconds, but afterwards it'll take a while for me to almost come down. It's not a nice feeling, but almost come down to reality. And there's been times when I've sort of gone, oh, well, that was horrible. It's almost like I'm stuck in that bubble until quite a while afterwards. I'll have to go and lie down, I'll have a migraine, that often used to happen, and just to feel myself again. I felt very, very alienated because of it as well, which is a shame, and you shouldn't have to be like that. To take you a step back, this was going on for about 5 years before I was diagnosed, and before I was diagnosed, doctors used to just tell me I was having anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and then because this all kept dragging on, they finally said that they thought I had depression. Well, I laughed initially. I was like, I'm not depressed, I'm not at all, and I didn't feel I was. This continued on. I'd go around in circles. Maybe I'd be fine for like a month, and then it would be, I'd have more of these, whatever they were, and be back to square one, going back to the doctors and so on. I then got into blogging, and it was actually a fellow blogger that once we were having a chinwag, I think it was the Elf Style Awards that it was, in the toilets, as you do. I don't know how we got onto the topic, but I was saying that what I'd been suffering with, and she said she'd had the same, and it was quite nice to, you know, chat to someone who was feeling how I was. I thought, I'm not alone about this. She'd had exactly the same sort of feelings, all this kind of stuff. But then she turned around and said, but mine was epilepsy. I was thinking, epilepsy? How is that epilepsy? Epilepsy is when you have a fit. No, it wasn't, she said. It's not like that, and then explained that epilepsy's further. I then went to the doctors again for about the 50 millionth time and said, look, refer me to a neurologist, and if it comes back and they say I'm absolutely fine, I will look at going down the antidepressant route, which is what they kept recommending for me. I'm a firm believer, unless I'm diagnosed with something, I don't want to take tablets. Do you know what I mean? I'm a bit funny about it. If I felt I was depressed, I would have jumped on the bandwagon, but I didn't feel I was. I met with the neurologist and played down what I was feeling, because I thought maybe I'm overthinking this, maybe I'm imagining it's worse than it is. But he sat there and he just looked at me and said, that's complex partial seizures. Weird hearing it. Hearing someone saying it wasn't depression, it wasn't panic attacks, it wasn't anxiety, it wasn't anything that the doctors told me. And I remember checking with him and I said, are you sure? And he said, yes, you know, I've done this for many years. He goes, I know, it's epilepsy. You're having complex partial seizures. The next bit was a bit of a blur, but I remember him asking me if I would driven to the hospital, which I had. So I'd driven to the hospital and he said to me, you know, you can't drive now. I need you, you know. I said, well, I may have to take my car back. So I remember driving my car back and then to work, and I worked with my mum and my sister's company at the time. I pulled up and I just sobbed. I remember sobbing because I knew everything was going to change. I was relieved because I'd been diagnosed, that I proved everybody wrong, that I kept saying it's not that. Even family members, friends didn't really understand what was going on, but also I was heartbroken because I was losing an element of my independence and I knew things were going to change. I refused to take medication to start with, because, like I say, I like to be, you know, black and white. You've been diagnosed, and I know there's tests that you need to go through in order to be diagnosed with epilepsy. Went for MRI scans, and then I went for an EEG, and it had picked up brain waves which indicated it was epilepsy. So I'd had the confirmation and started on medication. Lost my driving licence. I had to alter my lifestyle quite a bit. I was put on some tablets which, God, I call them the devil pill. Some people fine with them, but I didn't get on with them, and it was Keppra, and it made everything, oh God, 100 times worse. Made me have like about 4 or 5 a day, which when it knocks you for 6 afterwards and you feel so drained afterwards, how can you go on living like that? I was really, really depressed on Keppra. It really spun my world around. I lost loads of weight from it. And I mean, I know we all like to get slim and stuff, but that was not a healthy way to go. Doctors then put me on lamotrigine, and that's where we are now. And so far, touch wood, I seem to be okay. I'm hardly having seizures now, which is great. And the only times I've ever had any hiccups is when I've been poorly, run down, or I'm just not looking after myself in general. Like, lack of sleep is a huge thing, and stress is a major trigger for me. So me keeping chilled, not having too much caffeine, all those bits and pieces is main thing. I don't know who might find this video and find it interesting, but the main reason is because I spent hours typing in complex partial seizures into Google, or typing in my symptoms into Google, because I didn't know what was going on. Once I was diagnosed, I wanted to see if other people were having the same sort of thing as me. Could I find anything? No. I wanted to kind of almost spin a positive light on it. You know, I want people to know that you can get through it. It doesn't have to dominate your life. It does to some extent, because you wake up every day and you know that you are restricted in areas, but it doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to control you, and you can get through it. This might sound like a bit of a cheesy part of the video, but for anybody going through this, it is, and I know it's horrendous. I know it's horrendous. It's a horrible thing to, when you're going through the diagnosis process. I'm quite happy I'm not driving. I've got used to it now. I cycle everywhere. You know, I'm walking more, I'm outdoors more. You know, I appreciate things a heck of a lot more than I did do. And that's how it should be. You can get through it. You just need to change things in your life in order to work around it. Fill your time with people who understand. That's a huge thing. Some people, like I say, disregard it, don't understand it, but those who love you should. My family were really supportive. I think they were confused to start with because they didn't know what the hell was going on. No one else has epilepsy in our family. And my fiance has stuck by me the entire process, and for that I love him all the more for. I don't know if I can help in any way, but if anyone's going through the diagnosis process or thinks that they, after typing into Dr. Google the symptoms, thinks they might have epilepsy, then if I can help in any way, you know, please drop me an email. I'd be happy to chat to you about it. Turn the bad into a positive. I did the Blenheim Triathlon in June. I decided I would do, and I raised it for Epilepsy Research UK. So I took what was a negative and threw it into a positive pile, and it felt great. I was giving back to something that has now helped me. I'm now controlled pretty much. So hopefully you've maybe found this helpful. I'm not sure. I don't know if people really want to watch this sort of thing, but I just feel that there's nothing out there. There's nothing out there. There's everything on grandmas, everything on anything else. Who talks about complex partial seizures or partial seizures in general? No one! Even if you know someone who's going through this, support them, because they need you. But yeah, okay, right.